Hi, it's Mark Vena with SmartTech Research. I'm here at the Voler Systems networking event with a special friend, Miguel Adao, who runs sales and marketing
That's right,
at Voler Systems. And Voler Systems is a very interesting company. We're going to go into that in a second, but this is going to be an ongoing number of podcasts that we're going to be doing with Voler Systems called Voler Systems TechTalk. Very, very interesting name. It took us about 15 minutes to figure that name out. But Miguel, let's talk a little bit about what you do at the company, and then we'll kind of get into this event, which I think is, I've been at the last event that you had back at not too far from where
That's right.
Where I live, actually right next to me at the art house. That's how I met Miguel. But let's talk about your role at the company, and then we'll talk a little bit about what Voler Systems does.
Very good. Yes, I joined Voler Systems 2 years ago, not quite 2 years ago, May 2022, to initially run marketing. Now I'm running sales and marketing for the company. This company was founded 44 years ago by Walt Maclay, who I believe you've met.
Yes.
And we are now just expanding and taking the fantastic work that he's done with his team over 4 decades to the next level. And basically, we can talk about what Voler does, but we're just expanding on many fronts.
Yes.
Now.
It's a very interesting company because there's obviously a lot of companies that design solutions. I'm not going to rattle through the names because most of the viewers may not even know who they are because they're kind of behind the scenes.
Boutique, smaller companies.
Yeah, exactly. But you're focusing on very interesting devices that are very trendy, and I don't mean that from a sexiness standpoint, although they are sexy, I think, in some ways.
Right.
But solutions that really have a very powerful impact on people's lives. IoT devices, medical devices,
That's
wearables is a very, very hot category. So
Absolutely.
Talk about the value that Voler Systems brings, because the work that you folks do is not trivial type of work. It's not like there's pizza out in another room here, so you can tell that I'm hungry, but it's not like making pizza.
Right.
To use an extreme example. But let's talk a little bit about the value add, the attributes, the capabilities of the companies that really kind of defines what its value proposition is to the companies that you actually do work with.
Absolutely, and you're right. Those are indeed the 3 verticals where we touch. It's medical devices, it's wearables, which could be medical wearables, could be consumer wearables, could be for sports, athletic devices, and IoT, industrial devices for smart cart, smart city, agricultural, ag tech or agricultural technology, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And very often our customers, and we work with Fortune 50 companies, we work with top universities, and we work with startups. Early stage, even pre-revenue startups in their MVP, their minimum viable product or their proof of concept, their prototype. And basically what we bring to the party is this expertise with our dozens of engineers, mostly electrical engineers. We do hardware, firmware, and software. And firmware, folks will know, is embedded software that goes inside a device or inside a hardware equipment. And we help with the motion control, the sensors, the power management, the wireless connectivity to the cloud or to the edge or to other connection points. And we also help organizations when they are running out of bandwidth or they can't find the skill sets or they are just maxed out in terms of perhaps their budgets or their personnel. And so we can come in and augment a staff, complement their internal teams, whether they're a well-established company or a scale-up or a startup, and we help with, indeed, all the electronics components of their device, what we call from back of the napkin, the schematics, the block diagram, the architecture, all the way through pre-manufacturing. We don't make anything, but we can help you prepare your device, your prototype, all the way through that cycle.
And it's very interesting because very often, probably many of the companies that you work with, maybe not all of them, but many of those companies, they may have 80% of what it takes to get to the cross of the finish line, and you can kind of fill that 20% and get them across the finish line because they may not have the design expertise in some of those areas.
That's right. And especially as they're quite ready for commercialization, they might need help with compliance, regulatory, validation and verification, debugging. We can help with that as well. Now, we don't sometimes have all the skill sets and the expertise in-house, but we partner with mechanical engineering or ID or quality management system organizations so that we are the one kind of lead partner for the company.
Throat to choke.
I was thinking about that. I didn't want to go to a violent vision of the...
You can use that phrase.
Yeah, absolutely. Or the one back to pat.
Yes. Well, but customers value that.
Right.
I mean, if a company is spending millions of dollars on design and you can't have a design cycle that takes 3 years. It's not like the days of 30 years ago. Well, we'll get a design out there 2 or 3 years from now. I mean, you have to hit schedules, and so throat to choke is a very valued skill. And I'm sure you have some very spirited calls with customers from time to time.
Absolutely,
to get things across the finish line, but that's not unusual.
And that's what we're really proud of, what Walt has created over the decades, and what we try to emulate and replicate and grow on is this notion that we're a trusted advisor, that we're there as an extension of the organization for all these devices, wearables, and IoT to help the organization, again, whether they're Series A or even seeded organization, whether they're mid-market or SMB or a large organization. And so, for instance, we have engaged with the largest medical device or the largest industrial technology organizations. And very often we come in for just a short 6-week project. Sometimes we stay longer for a multi-month type of initiative.
Now, the interesting thing is that the devices that you play in, especially medical devices and wearables, just to use probably a bad example, obviously an Apple Watch with my New York Yankee band here. I mean, these are very important devices, but at the same time, especially when you get into the medical devices category, the level of precision that you have to provide is extremely detailed. I mean, when you're providing medical information, it can't be plus or minus 5 or 6%. I mean, that may not matter to a consumer, but like for the use of the example that Walt used in a video that we'll be showing right after this, steps, for example. Well, I don't really care too much if the pedometer portion is plus or minus 5 or 6%. Well, in a medical application, that's a big number.
That's a big number, and that's why we're very proud of our engagement with the FDA, whether it's class 1, which is more kind of no risk to the patient, and class 2 is a bit more risky and invasive. And class 3, of course, catheters and heart pumps and things that go inside the body, where actually it's not just a question of you missed a step in your Apple Watch.
You don't want your pacemaker, your smart pacemaker to
miss a beat, right? So that becomes indeed a matter of life or death, literally. And we do a lot with classes 1 through class 3 of FDA.
So let's talk for a few minutes. And actually, before we do that, let's just pause for a special. We've got to pay the bills here. We're going to pause here for a sponsored announcement. Hey, folks, this is Mark Vena, CEO of SmartTech Research. SmartTech Research is proud to have Aura sponsoring my SmartTech Check podcast. Aura security software is the all-in-one digital safety net for the whole family. It's literally like having a personal cyber guardian that protects all of the devices in your home on a 24/7 basis. What's more, its AI functionality stands out as it constantly learns and adapts to threats, keeping your family and you safe around the clock. It's a must-have solution for anyone serious about online security. Stay tuned for a special no-obligation promo offer for Aura that will give you cybersecurity peace of mind.
Hi, I'm Anna with SmartTech Research. Whether you're browsing the web, checking emails, monitoring your children's online behavior, spam calls and identity protection, and conducting online transactions, Aura has your back, ensuring a secure and seamless experience every time. Aura's comprehensive security solutions are compatible with Microsoft Windows, Apple Mac OS, Android, iOS, and iPad OS devices. For an exclusive 14-day no-obligation trial version of Aura, use the on-screen QR code or visit the website shown here. Aura is the smart, simple way to stay safe online.
Okay, we're back talking to Miguel Adao with Voler Systems. The question I do want to ask is around a topic that everybody keeps talking about, and that is AI. Now, the interesting to me is that AI, before it was kind of called AI, a lot of technology products had AI built into them. Even for the last 10, 15, 20 years. You could argue that a lot of the subsystems in cars, for example, have had some level of maybe a modest level of integration built around AI. But now it's becoming such a watchword. I was watching the Adobe event earlier today. I don't know if you get a chance to catch it.
I heard about it.
They're doing a thing on the content creation side that's blowing people away.
Video and copy
and content where it's pretty much almost taking the human being out of the equation. That's not completely accurate, but pretty close. Talk to me about when you talk to your partners, for people who are designing these type of solutions, the kind of role that AI will be playing at a macro level, at a real high level.
Sure. And the jury's still out there, right? Everybody who's watching knows there's a lot of buzz around AI right now. You see the NVIDIA stock price going through the roof and passing
I wish I bought
NVIDIA.
I wish I bought NVIDIA about 6 months ago.
Yeah. It's amazing. And
We
they
all do.
already, by being so focused on gaming and crypto and COVID research through the years, NVIDIA has really been ready for this moment. Of course, ChatGPT became this new buzzword and phenomenon, and people start. You can have a Shakespeare sonnet about your sister or your spouse in 10 seconds flat. It's outstanding. In our world, we're still very cautious because we don't want. So certainly, as a marketer myself, like you, yes, I'm starting to look into how can AI tools help me with my content creation, with my lead generation, finding lookalikes, for instance, companies that meet certain criteria from a size, from a geography, from a progress in their fundraising journey, and try to replicate that. AI is helping us there. As far as actually building devices, designing and developing devices, we're taking a very cautious approach, and we're recommending that our customers do the same. One thing I can say that is ancillary to AI is cybersecurity.
Yes.
And it's a big area of focus, especially because the FDA now has established some very clear and quite onerous requirements that all companies, regardless of the size of the company, need to meet. And so on the cybersecurity, I would just advocate and advise folks to really be if you're in the medical device space, whether it's again a class 1, a wearable, or something more invasive, that you are prepared to understand and adopt the new cybersecurity requirements. I would say on AI, very exciting on the marketing and on the demand generation front, and it will eventually, for sure, come into the medical device space. Right now, it's still not a big prevalent element of our conversations.
But it sounds like it's a growing piece of expertise that Voler Systems is developing to help. Hey, by the way, if you're going to go off and do this, be prepared. This is what you're going to sign up to.
That's right.
From a requirement standpoint.
Yeah.
Last but not least, let's talk about this networking event.
Yeah.
You do these about every month.
Yeah,
or so.
once a month. Yeah, different
and you
cities.
do them all over the state of California, or all
over the U.S.
All over the U.S.
Yeah,
for that
we go
matter.
all over the U.S. Yeah.
Why are those events important?
A couple reasons. Being a small firm, you don't have the budgets of a large organization to go out and make a lot of promotion and brand awareness.
No Super Bowl commercials.
No Super Bowl commercial. What was that? 5.5 million for 30 seconds this past year. So yeah, we prefer to have these intimate affairs, and tonight we'll have about 50 to 60 people here in San Francisco. But we've had the event where I met you, there were 110 there. And we do these once a month. We also do webinars once a month. We invite folks. In fact, we had one on AI recently, on cybersecurity, on quality control. And the purpose is to really allow us to present Voler as a trusted advisor, somebody who can help you if you at any one point needs support in this area. We would be thrilled to support. But even more exciting for me personally is and I can hear the buzz next door, is allowing people to meet each other. And one thing we do is we ask everybody to go around the room and introduce themselves. What do you do? Who do you work for? And what's one ask? I always joke, everybody has needs in our personal and in our professional life. What do you know? Of course, we're all looking for business, but are you looking for talent or for a job? Are you looking for a vendor, or are you looking for partnerships? Are you looking for funding? Very often, that's the ask. And so at these events, we allow folks to articulate what their main ask is, their motivation for coming today. And then I circulate everybody's contact details. And I love to hear that, Mark, you met Nate, and hopefully you guys can also work together on some project in the future. So that's post-pandemic. It's so valuable.
That's exactly what just occurred to me, because while video conferencing is great, Zoom calls are great, that in-person kind of interaction is so important, because whether it's you're at a club, at a Las Vegas event.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you bump into people that a
Sure.
person you may not have seen in the last 20 years, and that becomes an opportunistic situation
course.
where you'll be able to maybe provide some input into helping another company, or they may be able to help you.
That's right. Yeah.
So we're going to end it right there because you
Okay.
may not be able to hear on camera, but I guarantee all the pizza will be gone. And I'm going to blame Miguel for that, but there will be a QR code at the end of this podcast where you'll be able to get some more information and link right to Voler Systems. But with that, thank you again, and we will be chatting again in our next Tech Talk.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thanks, everybody, for
Thanks,
watching.
Miguel. Thank you.
Bye.
Hi, everyone. It's Mark Vena with SmartTech Research. I'm here with Walt Maclay, who's the president and founder of Voler Systems. Yep. We're having a great event today here in late March, as March comes to a conclusion. And Walt is a very interesting guy, certainly a very interesting company. I want to talk a little bit about Voler Systems and maybe a bit of the history of the company and what does Voler Systems actually do? I know the answer, but you'll do a better job of explaining it.
All right. So what we do is design electronics and firmware. So, and this could be in medical devices, consumer products, industrial products, but a large part of what we do is medical devices. So not only do we know how to design the product, we know what's needed to make a medical device, which is, there's some extra things.
Yeah, and it's interesting because there's a lot of companies that does what Voler Systems does, but you have particular specialty in IoT, in very specialized devices, devices that sit on the edge. You talked about medical wearables. Yeah. Talk a little bit about the history of the company, because you are the founder of the company. Yeah. How did Voler Systems come to be?
Well, I started Voler 45 years ago, 1979. And we made products, but in 99, which is now a while back, we switched over to doing design services, and that's something that I really enjoy. I enjoy designing products that help people. It helps both the customers that we work for and their customers who have medical devices that can do cool things. So we've been doing this for a while.
Now let's talk about some of the interesting requirements of the category. The products do have some volume from a business standpoint, but they obviously have to work in certain circumstances, certain environmental type of capabilities that the average consumer product might not have to operate in. Yeah. So talk about the value add that Voler Systems bring to that category, because they are specialized devices in many ways.
Well, there's a lot of different environmental issues, but one we deal with a lot is wearable devices. Now, the temperature is usually pretty modest, but there are a lot of other issues, like getting damaged, dropped, and things like that. Also, they need to work on the body in various places, and certain parts of the body are good for certain measurements, and other parts of the body, like the wrist, are really difficult, and that's where people often want to put a device. So knowing what you can measure where is very important.
Well, and the precision of those devices is important as well. You know, some of the ingredients that go into those products for measurements that are incredibly exacting.
Yeah, so for a consumer product, you know, if you're measuring steps, you probably noticed your step counter is not all that accurate. But if you're measuring heart rate, it better be accurate.
I like a device that counts my steps and exaggerates the number of steps, so I don't have to do the work, although that's a very, very good analogy. Let's talk a little bit about some of the trends that you're seeing over the last couple of years. Yes, we talked about the categories of devices, but from an application standpoint, what are some of the usage models that Voler Systems finds that? Because when you look at your pipeline, and you look at, because you're a design wins type of company, when you look at it's interesting because you'll probably say to me, Mark, you know, over the last year and a half or so, here's some of the trends that we're seeing that are just interesting, that just seems to be products that will kind of take off in the marketplace.
Yeah, well, there's definitely a trend toward more wearable devices and more IoT devices. That's why we're doing that, because that's what people need. And you know, we've done things like measuring the heart rate with a patch on the chest. But we did one where we measured gut sounds or gut electrical activity. Now, that's an interesting area because there's not very much successfully measuring the gut, and a third of people who have problems with a doctor get no diagnosis. So I look at this device that we helped somebody create as, here's a stethoscope, but you've never had one before. What would you do with it? And I expect they're going to find some interesting uses. And then we've done devices on the wrist, on the ankle, on the abdomen, on the head, and each one has a very different application. If you want to measure brain activity, EEG, it's got to be on the head. You can't measure it elsewhere. So it's fascinating, all the things that you need to know about the wearables in order to give somebody good advice.
Now, we were talking before we turned the camera on about AI. I can't have a conversation with anybody in the tech field without talking a bit about AI. I have to believe AI does play a role in a lot of the solutions that you folks are design. So talk to me about just kind of the way AI is being comprehended in some of these devices. I'm sure you probably embrace it. I know that you embrace industry standards in a big way. Industry standards are obviously a big deal, but give me a sense about, are you being kind of pulled into, hey, here's a device, it's an interesting product in terms of measuring something from a sensor standpoint, but is AI becoming a much stronger component of these solutions?
Yes. Now, for some time, AI has been available in the cloud. And the devices we design usually communicate to a phone, to the internet, and they can get AI in the cloud. But what's changing now is you can do AI on the device or on the phone. Now, not what you can do in the cloud, it's limited, but you can still do some pretty cool things right on the device.
See, what's interesting about that, there are companies like Qualcomm, NVIDIA, NVIDIA to a degree, but really Qualcomm and AMD, I would put them in this list as well. They're really focusing on bringing large language models and AI to devices locally. Because of course there's security and privacy advantages of doing that, because you don't want some of the stuff that you folks work on in the wearables section, you may not want that information in the cloud. But there's also some latency advantages as well. And especially in a medical device category where a millisecond is a big deal. So is that something that is becoming much more appealing?
It's becoming. These things, they get talked about for a long time before that we do a lot of it, but we're doing a little of it now. And I expect we'll be doing a lot more in the near future.
Well, this is a great discussion to have, because your company is really right in the throes of all these different things. As I said before, AI seems to be consuming everything that we're talking about, but the wearables category, the medical devices category is a category that obviously Voler plays a very influential role in, and I appreciate the time you given today, Walt, to talk on the podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks very much.